Oh, hey, didn't see you over there. If you are not watching on video, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I am here in Tampa, Florida, as we prepare for the ReliaQuest Bowl. All things Michigan football. We got to see a little bit of practice today. That means we got to see Bryce Underwood in action. We're going to talk about all of that here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. I couldn't remember what day it is. It's such a whirlwind of a week when you've got Christmas involved. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, here on the ground in Tampa, Florida. Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And now we are finally getting going. There is only a couple days left in the season. My apologies in advance for any airplanes. We are right by the airport. And for you who are out there that are wanting to, you know, if you're a Buckeye or a Spartan being like, hey, you're by the airport and port, whatever, this is the Media Hotel. And it's not like the college football playoff didn't put us right next to the airport for the Orange Bowl in 2021. Same deal. Nonetheless, we got to see a little bit of practice today. I meant we got to see Bryce Underwood. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be really upset with the fact that basically all of the coverage, at least my coverage, and I'm sure most of the coverage coming out of practice one is Bryce Underwood related. That's expected, right? Like when even Sharon Moore walked by us as we, you know, like they actually kind of situated us before. Like normally we we come and then they let us in. We have our 15 minutes and they escort us out because we had some media availability in advance. They actually ushered us over to where there was some kind of like pre-practice warm-ups and let us sit there and watch Bryce Underwood. I just saw a lizard. I forgot we're in Florida. You had to see Bryce Underwood as well as the other quarterbacks kind of get their workouts going and everything. And then Sharon Moore walks by us and he says to all of us, he's like y'all are here to see number 19, huh? You know, like it's well within the scope of what they envision, right? They want that publicity to be like, we've got the number one quarterback, we got the number one player in the country, and he is now practicing with us. So very exciting to get to see him in maize and blue. Obviously, I have a photo that is going viral, not by my own hand, essentially, because everyone just takes it and runs with it. But what did I see when it came to Bryce Underwood? I saw a guy who, we didn't see any wow throws or anything. It wasn't like they were showing us that, right? They were just he was going through the same motions as, Davis Warren, Alex Orji, who is here, in fact, so they aren't going to be without multiple options. Jaden Davis, who, by the way, looks worlds different and worlds better than what we had seen this time last year, as well as that practice video that was going around. We got to see a lot of Jaden Davis throwing it, and every single person, independent of me, like I thought it, and I went and said something to one media guy, and then another media guy comes up to me, he's like, wow, Jaden Davis has really fixed his motion, it looks so much better. So the fact that he is not shy of competition. He told the Charlotte Observer he has no intentions to transfer. We might have a little bit of a quarterback competition. Like the floor is being raised as far as that's concerned. But Bryce is a specimen. I mean, we already knew that. I've seen him at Belleville, and he is an absolute specimen. But you put him in some pads, and you watch the way that he works and he moves. It's just absolutely phenomenal to see him out there, because it's just like he just does everything. It almost looks like it's natural. But the great thing about Bryce, and we heard this last week from Davis Warren, he kind of reiterated this today. I asked Steve Kasula about Bryce Underwood, and instead of me just saying, oh, here's what he said and whatever, let's just go ahead and roll the tape. Here's what Steve Kasula had to say about Bryce Underwood.
Had about a week and a half or so to evaluate not only the early enrollees, but Bryce Underwood. What have you seen from him?
The biggest thing I would say about him is great spirit, great energy, committed to learning what we've got going on. He's doing really good. He's great. He great personality. He's funny. You know, I watch him, depending on the schedule. You know, he walks by my office in the mornings, one of the first guys in the building. So he's been awesome.
Davis had said that he's not necessarily surprised, but he's come in with the typical kind of Michigan work ethic. Is that kind of surprising to you for the number one guy in the country?
No, because what I've been exposed to at the University of Michigan, that's how pretty much every guy has entered our program. And he's a great fit, and he's been great. You would kind of like, I think I saw Dave say it, like you would never know it. He fits in with all of our other mid-years in the best way possible, and I mean that as a big-time compliment. He's been awesome.
All right, so the fact that he comes in a willing learner, humble, all of those things, that's exactly what you want. And it's not something that you would expect from a guy that's making, tens of millions of dollars as a 17-year-old. Not something you expect from the number one recruit in the country. I mean, yeah, you got that with Rashawn Gary, certainly. But generally, you see like this aura of just like, I'm so great, you can't tell me nothing. You can't teach me anything. I know everything. Everything is, the world is my oyster, so thanks for showing up. I got it from here. That's not what we're getting from Bryce Underwood, which is great. Other early enrollees, I got to see a few others. I wasn't exactly, it's early in the morning. My memory doesn't work even when my brightest of moments, but I couldn't remember exactly all the early enrollees, so I wanted to ask about them. I didn't, but so I got to see some of them. We got to see Andrew Marsh, Jamar Browder, seeing him in uniform, I can understand why the staff was just absolutely enamored with this guy. He is a physical type that Michigan currently does not have at the wide receiver position. He looks, in a way, almost bigger than a tight end, but I know that that's just my mind playing tricks on me. But it reminds me of when I saw Mike Morris in uniform for the first time. It's like, good for Happy Gilmore, my God, like that type of thing. Where it's like you see him and it's just like, okay, this dude is just absolutely a specimen. But the same could actually weirdly be said about Andrew Marsh, who we got to see running routes along with Browder and some of them, and just watching him, number one, he looks much bigger in pads, obviously. I mean, every player does, but it's kind of that thing. If you see like a Zeke Berry not on the football field, you're like, that guy is a hard-hitting safety? Okay. Now he's a corner, but he came in as a safety, and you're like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. And then you see him in the pads, and you're like, oh, I get it. Okay, cool. That is what Andrew Marsh has, that same thing. He puts on the pads and suddenly he just looks like he's a foot taller. Watched him run routes, really, really, really stellar stuff. Like, I just think that I don't normally like to say freshmen. We've on this show, we've said for a long time, freshmen, it's hard for us to sit there and project that they're going to be a year one contributor. I can see that for Andrew Marsh, to be honest. I think that he absolutely has that opportunity. So really good stuff to see some of these guys. Let's continue talking about the early enrollees. Let's continue talking about other parts that we saw in practice. Again, it's limited, and we'll eventually get to Justice Haynes and his commitment. We'll do all of that here in just a moment. But before we do, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower bills so you can grow your savings. Listen, I am a Rocket Money user. I love it. It works so wonderful. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. I used it a ton when I was applying for my Rocket mortgage to help me save a little bit of cash so that I knew that I could absolutely handle having an exorbitant mortgage. Anyway, exorbitant because, interest rates and such. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. So go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, hopefully we're not.
It's Tony Garcia over there. I don't know if he's on camera or not. Tony Garcia, Detroit Free Press. He's over there joining the podcast from afar. Actually, I don't think he's on camera, but nonetheless. So what do we see at practice outside of Bryce and some of the early enrollees? I mean, there were very little to glean from the types of things that we get to see, of course. But one of the things that I really take note in is just how fast guys move, how nimble are they. And one of the ones that I kind of was surprised by was Cole Sullivan, freshman linebacker. I mean, he's a guy that we've been talking about since he was an early enrollee. You got to see him a bit in the spring game. He played a little bit during the season, but mostly special teams. I mean, he did burn his red shirt. I mean, he is just a massive guy. Like, just to see him, again, the street clothes to pads is just, it's unbelievable. But for all of the kind of talk about bringing in other linebackers, or obviously the excitement over Troy Bowles, which, by the way, Michigan's practicing at Troy Bowles' high school, Jesuit. It's interesting to see a guy like Cole Sullivan, who's just like, he moves like a ballerina, despite being like 6'5" and just absolutely massive. It was kind of amazing to see him. It was great seeing a lot of the other early enrollees, because some of them kind of get, not really discussed. Now, I'm sure there were a lot that I didn't get to see, some defensive backs and such, because I just wasn't really around many of the defensive backs. But getting to see some of the other guys who enrolled early, like Andrew Babalola, Avery Gash. Gash already looks ready to go. Babalola looks like he's going to need a little bit of time to go through the strength training regimen and all of that. But I guess I could be surprised as far as that's concerned. Brooks Barr, not Brooks Barr. Sorry, this is exactly what I was about to say. Bobby Kenka. Seeing him, it reminded me of seeing Brooks Barr. And I've seen Bobby Kenka quite a few times as a recruit, and usually when I have seen him, it's been kind of like, okay. Like, I guess he's a defensive tackle, but to see him with the pads on and everything, that was a little bit of a different story. He looks like Brooks Barr. Like, his arm is as big as my leg, and I don't exactly have small legs, and I don't mean that in a good way, unfortunately. But still, I mean, like, he's just a massive upper body. He looks like ready to go. Travis Moten, I mean, I saw him during his official visit. It's another thing to see him in pads. I would not be surprised, just based off of size and kind of like what I know Michigan likes about him. Would not surprise me if he ended up being a Kenneth Grant type. Just because I think that's what they really liked about him. Wrestler, all of those things. And I saw Julius Holly from afar, and I'm trying to think if there was any other freshmen that I've noted. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who wasn't practicing. He was one of two guys I didn't see practicing. Blake Frazier in street clothes. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng wearing his jersey, but nothing, no pads, he was not clearly going through drills and such. So I think that covers everybody that I ended up seeing. But as far as just like other team stuff goes, I mean, I thought the quarterbacks, they all kind of looked the same, which is kind of an odd thing, including Bryce, but they weren't asked to do anything crazy. I mean, I saw a handful of bad throws, but for the most part, I think that you mostly saw consistency across the board. Anthony Arnew, man, we were actually kind of all marveling at him. He's outgoing because he's in the transfer portal, the Fresno State transfer who came in. He was actually kind of surprising, the zip he put on the ball. He was another one that a lot of us in the media were talking about watching him. As far as wide receivers, I was impressed by Samaj Morgan. Looks like he's full speed, right? And he missed some time, and he looked like he was ready to go, and he looked like the fastest of the group. Otherwise, I don't know if there were any notable omissions. It's kind of hard on day one. It's day two is kind of the easier day to say, okay, who did I see, who did I not see? Yeah, it does feel like a little bit of a depleted group that's going to be going in and playing against Alabama. But I mean, you still have a lot of the guys that you really need. Getting to seeing Josh Preeb there, it's like, okay, he's going for one last ride. That's good news. I don't know because we didn't really see any kind of like actual like lining up or anything like that. So who knows who's going to be the left tackle? I'm assuming it's going to be Jeff Percy, who I did see there. So you would expect it to be like Percy, Preeb, Crippen, El Hadi, and Link, who I saw all 5 of those. And, Link played really well against Ohio State, it seemed. And Percy, you just hope he comes on strong and plays about as good as he can. But nonetheless, it was a good thing to kind of witness practice. Again, it's hard to glean a lot. Let me double check my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything that I want to talk about here. But we covered everything in an article here. I don't really think there's anything that's really important to note. So, nonetheless, it's really happening. The bowl game coming up in a mere matter of days, 4 days from now. Kind of hard to believe. That'll be the end of the season, and we'll all transition to the off season and the postseason as we prepare for a 2025 that certainly has a lot of excitement due to number 19. Also due to a guy who just transferred. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about it. Let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's absolutely thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. This FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Well, the Josh Thompson dream is dead. As I sit here right now, he committed to LSU. You consider that to be, even though he never played for Michigan, that I think we can just call that the trade, the Bryce Underwood trade, right? Hey, you got yours. We got ours, but you hate to see a Fentonian go to Baton Rouge. I'm not in Baton Rouge, although I'm much closer to Baton Rouge now than I am to Fenton. Nonetheless. So that is disappointing news. But Michigan did get some really good news, though he hasn't announced it officially. Michigan hasn't announced him as signed. I have no concerns or worries here. Multiple people have confirmed it, that Justice Haynes did, in fact, commit to the maize and blue. I believe it was Friday night. Not Friday night. I don't know what day. Christmas Eve, I think. That is massive for Michigan. No, he doesn't have the most impressive stats in the world. That's just kind of due to what Alabama was running. But just, you love to see it for multiple reasons. One of them being the fact that he, as soon as he entered the portal, you had all these arrogant Ohio State accounts, some in the media, a lot of fans, and they're just talking about their Tuscaloosa to Columbus pipeline and all of this. And there's a lot of people that say Michigan ended up winning out in the end because they dropped some kind of bag and all this kind of stuff. They almost certainly dropped the bag. That's what they're doing kind of across the board now. But this is a guy, like I told you, that I had heard the name come up, through back channels well before he got in the portal, while the regular season was still going, before Bryce Underwood ever committed, all of that stuff. So that came to fruition as I expected. Obviously, he went through the paces, make sure this was the right decision. Michigan does end up being the right decision, but it's yet another shot over the SEC bow, right? He's a guy who was the #1 running back in the country as a recruit. Maybe it was number 2, but nonetheless, he was a 5-star according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, if memory serves. And he's just kind of doing the Alabama thing, right? You don't necessarily get to see the field straight away, and freshman year didn't do a lot. Sophomore year got a little bit more carries, which was this past year. Certainly was a guy that Alabama did not want to lose, and then you just heard it's going to be Georgia or Ohio State. And obviously it doesn't end up being either of those guys. It ends up being, South Carolina or Michigan. And, he took a visit to Ole Miss as well. Just for him to end up in Ann Arbor, that's a massive thing for Michigan, because now you've got a nice 3-headed monster of Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, who you want to get a little bit of something going, right? Because, he missed most of the season with injury. And going into year 2, you expect him to have a much bigger role. I do expect that to happen, but just when you miss most of your first year with injury, you think, okay, maybe you want to make sure you've got a little bit of protection there. And then Ben Hall, who can be your bruiser, I think that is a massively good-looking running back room. Not even mentioning the freshmen. I'm particularly high on Jasper Parker, who I think is just going to be a fan favorite and a stud. I hate saying that, by the way. I hate saying like a guy's going to be a fan favorite, because it always reminds me, and I've never brought this up to him, I don't think. It's like I can hear it in my head as if I had it recorded. Maybe they made a promo out of it. I just remember on 97.1, Doug Karsh talking about Dontrell Willis and saying, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. And it's almost like I heard or saw it on TV or whatever, and like it was just like constantly replayed. I don't think it was. I just think it resonated with me because that was the thought. You know, when Dontrell Willis and Miguel Cabrera came to the Detroit Tigers, I think just as many people were as excited about Dontrell Willis as they were Miguel Cabrera. I know I was, and then it didn't turn out that way. But I say that, I do think that Jasper Parker is going to be a fan favorite. I think Nathaniel Owusu is going to be a fan favorite as well, in terms of personality, certainly, as well as the ability to play. But certainly right now, and I don't know anything, I haven't interviewed Justice Haynes or anything like that. I do think he is going to be a guy that everyone loves, just based off of kind of what you see. Certainly there were highlights going around that showed just kind of what he could do, and they were tantalizing. And if Michigan can put together its offensive line and get everything going, now I'm going to disagree. I'm going to have a public disagreement with my cousin, who was saying on Christmas, he strongly disagreed with me. He said you basically need to have a system where it's all seniors basically at the offensive line, and then they rotate out, and then the next group of seniors come in and everything like that. I disagree with that. In large part because we've seen it. The first Joe Moore Award-winning Michigan line had a redshirt sophomore and a redshirt freshman, Zach Zinter and Trevor Keegan, reversed those, but still on those lines. You had a walk-on and Andrew Vistardis, who was not that great the year before. You had a senior Ryan Hayes. I, for some reason, can't remember who was right tackle in 2021, but still. Like, we've seen them kind of, mix and move parts. You've seen some younger guys in college football get some play, whether it's a Caden Proctor at Alabama or some others, right, that can just absolutely be maulers. It's not about, necessarily always about the strength and conditioning and building them up. It helps, but we've also seen some of those guys go through those paces and then not be as good. I mean, we saw Joe Ahadi look a lot better in 2022 when he went in for an injured Trevor Keegan. I think it was 2022, compared to how he's looked throughout the breadth of this year. So, nonetheless, I think that the offensive line can be fixed. I think that you can look at a situation with Evan Link and say, wasn't good this year, but it should take a step up this next year, just because usually you get better at football by playing football. Obviously, that has a lot to do with Justice Haynes, because you would expect that the line is going to improve upon what you saw this year. And certainly, it improved throughout the year. The last couple games, they looked a lot better going up against Ohio State and Northwestern. We'll get a better look against Alabama. That's two guys from Alabama who have transferred to Michigan, and it's going to be interesting. I wonder if they're around. Are we going to see Damon Payne and Justice Hayes around? I don't know. So nonetheless, that's going to do it for us today. Day one, full day here in Tampa, Florida, preparing for the ReliaQuest Bowl. We'll be back on Saturday to continue talking. We might have I think we're going to go in the morning, so we can knock it out before practice, and then we will also, we've got Busch Gardens and all that stuff. We'll end up recapping all of the events of tomorrow on Sunday. That's the plan. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.